welcome. I'm glad you made it across time and space to 1844 and this drawing room here on St. James Square in London. There's wood paneling on the walls around us and tea laid out on a table between us. The tradition of afternoon tea drinking is in its infancy, but you and I are at the forefront of fashion. If you draw a deep breath, can you smell a hint of smoke from the small fire that the scullery maid lit this morning, or the faint floral fragrance of my perfume? And if you listen closely, can you hear the servants walking in the other rooms as they go quietly about their chores? On occasion, you might hear a horse-drawn carriage pass by the window when the neighbors come and go on their daily outings. Since it's summer, the Parliament is in session, which means noble families from all across England are gathered here in London so the lords can attend their meetings. So you and me, young folk without titles, it means that the social season is underway and every weekend is stuffed full of balls and bazaars for us to meet our friends and hopefully the person we will marry, so that we can one day become the hosts and not the attendees. Today is Wednesday, and on the coming Saturday, the Duke of Devonshire is hosting a garden party at his magnificent Chiswick house on the outskirts of London. But this isn't just an usual garden party that you and I might throw here in the city or at our family estates. The gardens at Chiswick House are so enormous, you might be more correct in imagining them as a park. In this garden, at the back of the White House that is dwarfed by the greenery around it, there are 3 famed walks lined by hedges and converging at a single point at the back of the green lawn. As you stand at this point of convergence, where all 3 paths begin, to your left, in the distance, you see a tall building with a tower calling you that way, toward the stone bridge that would take you across into the untamed west. In the middle, far ahead, stands a pavilion with tall Roman columns, enticing you to follow it into the depths of the garden. And to your right, you see a small rustic stone building waiting for you, with a niche for a statue that you can't quite make out at this distance. It is Napoleon, and the walk leading up to his bust is known as Napoleon's Walk. But if you ignore all this and walk sharply to your right instead, you will arrive in the Rose Garden, where a statue of Venus stands on a column high above, surrounded below by rose bushes of every imaginable variety. If you were to continue past them, you would arrive at the kitchen gardens, where exotic plants and scientific experiments are always growing on account of the garden being let to the Royal Horticultural Society. But if you turn your back to the roses instead and go across the gravel road, lined by old cedar trees, past Roman statues and stone urns standing on white pedestals, all the way to the canal that runs across this grand garden. You can see a small Greek temple to your right, hiding among bushes and tall grass, full of flowers at this time of year. On the other side of the canal, filled with fish and swimming birds, you see the western wilderness, where the mark of human hand is minimal and plants grow wherever they please, tamed only by the wild deer that stop to chew on them. But you and I are still here in this drawing room. The Duke is hosting this party on Saturday in honor of the Tsar of Russia and the King of Saxony, who are both currently visiting England. 800 members of high nobility will be in attendance, and though we don't know it yet, the Duke has loaned giraffes from a private zoo to stand majestically on the western bank, though one of them breaks from the bunch and comes to be admired closer by the partygoers on that grand lawn. The Tsar is known for giving bear hugs to anyone he finds agreeable, and there is much speculation about whether the Duke himself or Prince Albert might receive one such hug. And if you and I would not otherwise care about the garden party, we might go only to see that, and the great line of stately carriages travelling across these more rural roads, as all of London nobility makes its way to the secluded house. In the newspapers, we can read daily updates on the tour of the Tsar and what he has been doing in England, though this isn't unusual, for we might read the same news regularly about our own peers and peeresses. Yesterday, the esteemed guests visited the Ascot races, and in the evening, the King of Saxony witnessed the Eton Regatta on the River Thames, where students of this prestigious boarding school row down the river, past the magnificent Windsor Castle, looming above in all its medieval glory. Perhaps that is where you and I were yesterday, and why we are resting here today, instead of joining the others attending the grand review of troops in Windsor, where the Tsar will ride with the Duke of Wellington to admire the British troops gathered there in their varied uniforms along the long avenue leading up to the castle, lined by ancient oak trees, where jousts took place in the times of Edward I and Edward III. And on this day, cannons are fired in the traditional way to greet the esteemed guests, despite being told not to, on account of the Queen's ailing health, or more likely, her third semester pregnancy. This outrages the Duke of Wellington, who has an adorably close friendship with the young Queen. You might remember him as the war hero who defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo. He is now in his 70s and greatly beloved for his authenticity. On the front page of today's paper, we can also find an advertisement for a charity ball set to take place on the 10th, next Monday. Among its many illustrious patronesses, The ball is some of the highest members of British nobility, including the Duchesses of Somerset and Bedford. The latter lady is the one whom we have to thank for inventing the custom in which we are now partaking, the afternoon tea. We might attend the ball, you and I, if we find the energy, or if the ball does not entice you, we might instead attend the fancy bazaar on the 11th and 12th. Prince Albert will be laying the first stone, and the bazaar will open thereafter to what is expected to be a great crowd of every class of society who can afford the entrance fee of 2 shillings and 6 pence, which in 2025 money would be about $14. Or if a bazaar doesn't interest you, we might go see a play. Tomorrow, Her Majesty's Theatre will have an extra night of Bellini's opera I Puritani, starring the famed Madame Grisi, whose tumultuous love affairs with fellow artists and members of high nobility we might have been following in the less reputable newspapers. Or maybe we'll go to Royal Haymarket this evening to see the comedic play A Cure for the Heartache. At the end of the night, the show will conclude with the revived fairy extravaganza entitled The Fair One with the Golden Locks. I wonder if that is what I think it is. Now, can you guess why we're here on June 5th and not on just about any other day? It's my birthday. Happy my birthday. I hope you have a good one. I will probably spend it reading and writing, so it's like any other day in that regard. But as a treat, I wanted to bring you here for a moment of peace and tranquility, and to meet the main character of the novel I'm working on. But her maid tells me she's out for the day, so I appropriated her house instead. Thanks for spending this time with me. I'm blessed to have you in my life, and I hope you'll always feel as welcome and cherished as you have made me feel. Now, we should go if we want to hear talk of the dashing captains at Windsor today, or whom the Tsar might have flustered while we have been resting here. But if you'd like, you may stay here and nap instead, and I will come back to tell you all about it.